Hello and welcome to a Kavernacle Director's Cut video or a Kavernacle Remastered video. Following my favourite directors, Hideo Kojima and Ridley Scott, I thought I'd remaster a couple of my videos. I have multiple reasons for doing this. The big one is that I'm going through a pretty big life change. I'm moving, leaving London, and I just don't have time to produce as much content as I want. And I thought it'd be the perfect time as well to re-release some videos that I thought did not get enough attention. My criteria for re-releasing certain videos, and they are new edits of them, is looking at what I'd made, like, has it got enough views? So my criteria is about, had it hit 20k views? Most of these videos had only hit 20k views, and my other criteria was, are they over 2.5 years old and still hold up? So I've picked about 3, and you're going to watch one of them today, and basically, it's met that criteria. I thought it was really good. I remember putting loads of effort into them, and I remember it not really getting the response I wanted, and I went back and watched some of them, and I'm like, these still hold up, and they're still relevant. And also, another thing is, I've made nearly 1,000 videos, and I feel like that makes them so disposable. So when I make a really good one, it doesn't hit, and I just have to move on. I get really sad. So what you're about to watch is basically one of these videos being remastered. I'm going to add a little bit of modern context in from 2025 about why it's still relevant, and then you're going to watch like a new edit of the video. The original one won't be available to watch anymore, and if you actually remember the original one, you can be satisfied in knowing that you're probably one of the few people who's watched both the videos and you're also one of my super fans who's been around for the longest time. So I appreciate you if you even remember watching this before. But yes, please enjoy the director's cut, the remaster of whatever video you're about to watch. So I released this video back in 2022, and it was looking at PragerU's children's historical cartoons. Now, I went through various different cartoons they'd made, going from the like more tame ones, the ones that I didn't really care about, to the ones which are bizarre to show for children and are actively dangerous to show to children because they really whitewash some brutal periods of history. And yeah, I thought it was relevant to remaster and re-release this video because PragerU's children's cartoons might be shown around America soon because of what Trump has done. So an article like last month said the White House has a preferred alternative to PBS. It may already be in countless classrooms. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting announced last week that it would shut down after Congress voted to claw back over $500 million of federal funding from the organization. The announcement imperils local PBS and NPR stations around the country that have provided news and educational content for kids for nearly 50 years. Amid the stripping of these federal funds last month, the White House debuted a new educational partner at its launch event for its new Founders Museum exhibit, PragerU, a non-profit organization that specializes in creating right-wing educational short videos for adults and children. Department of Education Secretary Linda McMahon introduced the partnership, followed by PragerU CEO Marissa Straight. For the White House exhibit, PragerU created an AI-generated videos of the Founding Fathers delivering patriotic accounts of the revolution. In one, an AI-generated John Adams borrows a catchphrase from Ben Shapiro telling the viewers that facts do not care about our feelings. What an absolute fucking nightmare world we're living in. PragerU's partnership with the Department of Education is not the first time the conservative content mill has partnered with the government. Over the past few years, the organisation has partnered with states and superintendents throughout the country to make their educational material widely available to public school children and teachers. So there used to be half a dozen states who have these partnerships, including Louisiana, Florida, Oklahoma, Montana, and Arizona. In Oklahoma, they're excited about it. Ryan Walters is the very controversial and conservative education commissioner in Oklahoma, and he actually recently said he wants to use PragerU material to evaluate teachers who are coming from other blue states. So gutting federal funding and gutting government programs to replace them with a private company doing the same thing for way worse results for way more money is really, really common across Western capitalist countries. But this is obviously like very dystopian in that despite the American education system being obviously fucking terrible, putting like blatant far-right propaganda as these cartoons for children to watch in school is just taking it to like the next level. And expect these cartoons to pop up in more and more classrooms across America as the effects of these Trump cuts continue and JD Vance succeeds him and wins the next election or whatever and continues doing these policies. So with that modern 2025 context out the way, Let's go back to 2022, where I made this video, where AI didn't exist in the same way. Wasn't that, in hindsight, a golden era? So let's get into me going over some of the cartoons, and I hope you enjoy this recut video.
Okay, Layla. Let me say goodbye to Ronald Reagan first, though. Bye, Mr. President. It was nice meeting you. Thanks for beating the communists.
Goodbye, Leo, and remember this. It's never too late to fight for freedom.
Thanks for beating the communists. Thanks for beating the communists. Beating the communists.
In America, but also in the UK, there has recently been a lot of outrage about what kids and young people are being taught in schools and universities. Now, you guys might have actually seen some videos covering PragerU kids on YouTube, which we're going to be talking about today. And it's so very ironic. The side that are claiming most about another political side, mainly the Democrats or the left, are brainwashing children, indoctrinating children. Just let children be children, while creating YouTube channels to teach children about the horrors of socialism and essentially whitewash any extremely controversial or horrible event in American history, while glorifying people like Winston Churchill, Ronald Reagan, promoting the police. What we're going to do is go through some of these videos. Some of them are worse than others, and I think I'm going to leave the two most gross ones until the end. But we're just going to talk about the style of content and mainly how this channel is being completely astroturfed, because the views on these videos are so inconsistent. It's clear that the ones that are doing well are the ones that are being advertised, because when the videos are not advertised, these videos do not get many views. I also want to take a quick look at PragerU Kids' website. Basically, it has all its shows up for you, and you can flick through them and watch them. And it has like different sections. They don't actually have that much content yet. They have books called Otto's Tales, which we're going to get into because they have people reading these books in YouTube videos. And then they have like other books that you can buy on Amazon. So here's one, Women of Valor, Great Women in History. So you got Margaret Thatcher and you got Condoleezza Rice, two amazing women in history. I totally agree. Nothing controversial about either of those women. And if you go down a bit further, they have these magazines which are about life in different countries. So now I want to move into the content. And I guess the odd thing about these ones mainly is they're just trying to teach kids about politics and give them political talking points and mainly promote conservative figures. But again, like I was saying at the start, don't conservatives always say, let kids be kids? You know, don't teach them about that nefarious gender ideology. But here they are talking about how great Winston Churchill is. Now, the only reason I would say this one isn't as sinister to me personally is because the Winston Churchill whitewashing is something that is extremely common across the West, and Americans absolutely love Churchill. So kids are probably going to grow up with these views anyway, unless they go out of their way to read more about how much of a terrible person and imperialist Churchill was. So here's just a quick glimpse at how PragerU depicts Churchill for children.
I have been chosen to lead Great Britain for the reason you have come to visit me. Courage. It wasn't easy to speak my unpopular opinions, but I knew it was the right thing to do. So I overcame apprehension and was brave. In fact, I used to be fearful of even speaking at all.
Okay, it's me who's scared. I didn't want you to know I'm a coward.
You haven't quit yet. You're no coward if you never surrender. There's still time for you to find courage.
But I'm really afraid of playing against the Scorpions.
There's nothing wrong with fear. There's nothing wrong with anxiety. But there's everything wrong with giving up or hiding from duty. Courage is doing what you know to be right, despite the fear you feel. We shall never surrender.
Well, we're just playing on the soccer field, but thank you, Mr. Churchill. I see why you're such a famous leader. I understand my duty to play hard for my team and for myself, and I shall never surrender too.
Good form, young chap.
Even the message there is like quite a weak one. I think this whole video just is meant to glorify Churchill and make you think, yeah, Churchill was a very, very good person who stood up to the evil Germans. Not that he probably shared a lot of their beliefs on certain things and pretty much only didn't like them because they were competing with the British Empire, because above all, Churchill was a massive imperialist who didn't mind killing thousands and millions of people in the colonies, and obviously had a career of being this imperialist in office. Now, for the people who don't like leftists politicizing children, They also have some Copaganda on here as well. Now, I didn't know who this guy was, but he's actually a conservative commentator who's apparently leading some sort of Dem exit, that thing that a lot of these grifters are getting behind. So he's called Officer Brandon Tatum, and he's a former American football player who became a policeman and then became a conservative political commentator, and basically just spends the whole video talking about how great the police are, and he just acts like the police are good for communities and help the community. Also has a little animation of a SWAT team fighting, and I'm like, is this actually aimed at children? Like, do children need to be seeing animated SWAT teams in their videos? So have a look at this.
As a law enforcement officer, my job is to protect and serve. It can also involve some of the exciting things you see on TV shows, but it's also about things like helping lost children find their way home. No matter the details, our goals are to keep people safe and make our communities better places.
So it's like all of us hired you to protect us, right?
You got it. We do try to help everyone, and that's actually why I decided to join the police force. I've saved some lives, and I've even been in some very dangerous situations, but remember, my objective is always to protect and serve the community.
Hey, Officer Tatum!
Officer Tatum, what's good?
Hey guys, just helping some visitors. Y'all see the Cardinals Sunday?
Yeah, man.
We're gonna take the West for sure this year. Have a good night, sir.
Thanks guys. Don't stay out late. Get home to your moms.
Okay.
See ya, sir.
You know those guys? They look tough.
Yeah, I know those knuckleheads pretty well. They're great boys. I try to get to know as many people as possible in the community where I police. The more I know them, the better I can understand their problems and serve.
Since sometimes you have to be in dangerous situations, are you ever scared?
I've definitely been in scary situations, especially when I was a member of the SWAT team. But if I'm too scared, I could make a mistake. And when police make mistakes, people get hurt.
So how do you keep from getting scared and making mistakes?
It's not easy, but we police have good training. And when the going gets tough, I take a deep breath, focus on acting how I've been trained, and work confidently. In those moments, there's no room for mistakes.
So if you are putting stuff like this on YouTube, kids, your demographic can be very, very young, right? So this is pretty dystopian, all of this, that you're trying to indoctrinate kids in conservatism. The one thing I would say about the two last videos we watched is mainly that this propaganda about Winston Churchill and about cops is not something that is like a fringe conservative thing. It's like the whole of society. Like, Copaganda is very, very prominent. Literally every time I go into my parents watching a new TV show on BBC or something, it's some sort of detective or cop show. Most of it glorifies being a cop or kind of makes cops seem like these heroes. And I laugh in that clip that it shows him interacting with those guys who look tough and talking about how he serves the community. And police have very, very good training. When American police in particular have absolutely terrible training, they don't ever really act like a part of the community. Essentially, in many instances, they actually act like an occupying force, only there to essentially brutalize marginalized groups or protect capital. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll know I absolutely hate police. I think out of any role in the government, I think they're the biggest traitors, often middle class, sell out the rest of us, and when there's some sort of protest movement over very legit grievances, who's going to be cracking your skulls? It's the police. And of course, if you are a white kid watching this, or you're a white parent showing your, white children this, they might believe this because it is more likely they will never have a really, really bad experience of police or a consistently bad experience of police. You'll never really have to have a talk with white children about how you might actually lose your life through a fairly innocent interaction with police officers because they're so trigger happy. But again, I feel like these two in particular are wider things that children will be exposed to no matter what, even if they watch PragerU or they don't. But here's the more explicit propaganda we're going to get into now. So one is the glorification and whitewashing of Ronald Reagan, who, unlike Churchill, who I can understand at least why people think he has redeeming factors, even though I don't think he does. The thing with Ronald Reagan, he's responsible in many, many ways for how much of a hellhole America has become. Deregulating the economy, deep corruption, unleashing this Reaganomics, crushing massive unions, and the amount of awful people he allowed into office. So let's look at 2 clips from this video. One is about how Ronald Reagan basically ended communism and how he is responsible for the Berlin Wall falling despite not actually even being president at the time. And let's start with how they talk about Ronald Reagan at the start of the video.
Did you know that Ronald Reagan was one of our most popular presidents?
Of course I knew that.
And did you know he was California's governor before he was president?
Well, duh. Did you know that he started out as an actor? He starred in over 50 movies.
Yeah, and he wasn't just an actor either. He was in the military during World War II.
You know what? He was actually great at a lot of stuff. He played college football.
He was also on the swim team.
He ran track, too.
Plus, he was student body president.
And he was totally handsome.
Ew, gross.
What the heck, Leo?
Boy, I sure wish I could have met Ronald Reagan.
So the propaganda is so clear here. And I find it funny talking about his sports career. There's a really good anecdote I heard of someone who used to, maybe in the Reagan government, who used to say that Reagan was so delusional, he often thought playing movie roles of different jobs and experiences meant he actually did it in real life. And I love how the kids say that Ronald Reagan was in the military in World War II, right? And to most people, you think, oh, Ronald Reagan, he fought in the military in World War II. No, he didn't. He made propaganda films as part of the US military during World War II. Of course, they're not saying that because it makes him seem less heroic. But apparently the way Reagan spoke about starring these propaganda films, it seemed like he genuinely believed he did actually fight in World War II. And although I hate George Bush Sr. a lot, there's also an interesting parallel that George Bush Sr. was an extremely talented athlete. I think he was a really great baseball player who could have gone pro, but he actually fought in World War II. And they're saying everything Reagan tried to pretend he was and cultivate this image of, George Bush actually did it. But yeah, already trying to make us think Reagan was this absolutely great guy. But now these characters teleport to the Berlin Wall, and for some reason, Ronald Reagan is there.
I'm here in Berlin to stop the communists and end the Cold War.
Oh man, all this talk about communists is making me hungry.
Well, Leo, communism makes everyone hungry. People living under communism are often poor and don't have enough money for food. That's why we have to stop it.
Why did they build the Berlin Wall in Germany?
That's a good question. We're in West Berlin, which is the free side of Germany. On the other side of the wall is East Berlin, which is occupied by the Soviet Union.
Why is it called the Cold War anyway? It doesn't seem that cold.
It's not because of cold weather. It's called the Cold War because we were able to end the war without using any weapons.
A war with no shooting or bombs? How did you do that?
We also used our economy to win.
Economy? Isn't that money stuff? It sounds really complicated.
It's really very simple, Leo. We used a program called Reaganomics to make our economy strong. We cut taxes so that the government took less of people's hard-earned money away from them, and that led to more people getting jobs. Thanks to everyone working hard, the United States economy was so big that the Soviet Union couldn't keep up.
You are amazing, Mr. Reagan. You saved everyone's lives and made them better at the same time. Bye, Mr. President. It was nice meeting you. Thanks for beating the communists.
Goodbye, Leo.
Okay, I'm obviously not looking for extremely nuanced and detailed political analysis in my PragerU kids video about the Cold War. I do find this very laughable though, even if you're trying to present this to children, this very American-centric point of view. Like apparently the Soviet Union occupied East Germany, but America didn't occupy West Germany. Also, the Reaganomics stuff is absolutely laughable. So they cut taxes, keep more of their hard-earned money, which created more jobs. Cold War over. That's all it took. That's a very positive thing that Ronald Reagan did. Of course, this is just, horrible, horrible propaganda. But kids are not going to understand about cutting taxes. I'm sure most kids don't even understand what taxes are, especially people who will watch this on the YouTube Kids app. And of course, it's grossly sanitizing one of the most corrupt and horrible presidents in modern American history. Like I said, a guy who pretty much fundamentally has destroyed anything redeeming about America, put the nail in the coffin of the union movements. Obviously, this unregulated capitalism was disastrous for most people who weren't insanely wealthy, and it's why you have so many films about the excess of the Reagan era. American Psycho, Scarface, Wall Street, there's plenty of them. Because this is such a time of individualism and destroying each other to make as much money as possible. Also, of course, I don't need to tell you guys that one of the things that Ronald Reagan is most famous for is Iran-Contra, and that was illegally selling weapons to Iran through Israel. Not that I really care about that, but if you're president of the United States, that's essentially treason. And then use the profits to fund fash death squads to try and re-establish a brutal dictatorship in Nicaragua, who had overthrown the Somoza regime in 1979 to establish their own democratic rule. Trying to indoctrinate kids in this far-right ideology, and I guess trying to get more kids to watch it through this like cutesy style animation, hoping that the YouTube Kids algorithm will just send it their way and they will watch propaganda about Ronald Reagan, Winston Churchill, and, you know, watch history videos about King Alfred the Great. Now, I would like to cover like the Frederick Douglass stuff and some of the other things, but I recommend you go check out Big Joel's video on this stuff. But the video I find the absolute grossest, like I can't even believe they are trying to indoctrinate children in whitewashing this historical event, is they made a video, and it's read by Michael Knowles doing an Italian accent for Christopher Columbus, all about Columbus Day, talking about what a great hero Christopher Columbus was. Remember, this is aimed at children, and you're trying to sanitize and glorify this absolutely insane butcher of Native Americans. Not only admit most of the terrible things he's done, but glorify him. So let's have a look at some clips from this video.
Today, we're going to read a story about how PragerU's favorite bulldog, Otto, traveled more than 500 years back in time with his best friend, Dennis. Together, they meet someone very, very special. 3 weeks into his journey, Columbus was far from completing. His crew began to grumble and lose hope of succeeding. Columbus, fearless and rather quite confident, helped the men stay the course toward the Asian continent. After 10 long weeks, Columbus finally spotted land. I was so happy, I jumped out and kissed the sand. But this was not India. This was a different place, and there were natives here who were of a different race. The settlers and natives got along quite a lot, but also had trouble with each other, and sometimes they fought. Dennis and I wandered around, enjoying the warm sun. "I love exploring," Dennis said. "This is so much fun." Columbus established a settlement and brought back many treasures. This would open new trade routes and many more endeavors. The king and queen were as happy as could be. "We want to send you on more voyages, not just 2, but 3. The news of Columbus's discovery traveled very fast. People wanted to see this new world with opportunities so vast. This would eventually lead to a wondrous new creation, the United States of America, a mighty, great nation.
So where do you even start with this video? I just find it so gross because although you're not going to get into the brutal details of Columbus and early Spanish and Portuguese rule and later English and then American rule of the Americas, painting it in this way to children, I just think is so gross. Obviously, the whole tone of Columbus being some great hero is terrible. This guy was an absolutely terrible, evil man. But I guess it's like, oh, they met natives. Sometimes they fought. Sometimes they got along quite well. The Spanish settlers quickly ruled over an entire system that treated the natives as subhuman. And I've made this argument before. This is part of the birth of modern racism based on the racial hierarchies enacted in Spanish plantations. Another gross one is, well, Columbus opened all these trade routes up, right? So it has these lines outlining how the Iberians went to different places in the Caribbean, all these trade routes, right? What do you think these trade routes were used for? I wonder if they were used to transport slaves to the New World. Oh yeah, they were. And then these slaves were worked to death in their thousands, mining gold, silver, working on plantations for sugar, being exposed to mercury in their mining, and all dying very, very young. Also saying Columbus brought back lots of wealth. Where do you think he got that wealth from? Do you think he just found it lying around, or did he steal it after killing loads of natives? Or did he use the native labor and the African slave labor to extract mineral wealth from these places? Like, Ronald Reagan is bad enough, Winston Churchill is bad, but this is just something that in my mind is so unnecessary. And we see so many places across America that are completely getting rid of all monuments to Columbus. Lots of places in the actual US stop celebrating Columbus Day because of how brutal this guy was, because of how awful this man was. The other thing is, he talks about him being kind of responsible for the birth of the United States. This guy found territory in South America and Central America and the Caribbean. He didn't go to North America. The first people to go to North America was Leif Erikson and Scandinavians. And then, of course, the first English settlement was in Jamestown with, like, you know, Captain Smith and stuff. So even if you wanted to talk about, like, the glory of the American founding, I don't know why you'd celebrate Columbus, because he is worse than people like Captain John Smith. Like, I know Americans do celebrate John Smith as well, but if I was PragerU, I maybe would talk about that story a bit more. Whereas if you actually read even a fraction of what Columbus did, he is literally a total monster. It's clear in this instance they're trying to fight back against the trend of general society turning against the notion that Columbus was some sort of brave, heroic navigator who discovered the new world where millions of people live in advanced civilizations. Really, really gross. And it doesn't surprise me coming from PragerU, an organization that demonized John Brown while promoting Robert E. Lee. So anyway, go watch Big Joel's video for more analysis of this type of thing. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.